The Elgin Police Department is dedicated to working in partnership with the community to promote safety and enhance the quality of life by serving with professionalism, encouraging open communication, and embracing diversity.
Engaged.
Partnering with our citizens and involved in our community.
Progressive.
Embracing innovative strategies while maintaining proven practices.
Dedicated.
Serving with integrity and professionalism. Elgin became an incorporated city in 1854 and installed its first police marshal, George W. Renwick. Over the years, the title of the head law enforcement officer changed from marshal to chief. And although the role has expanded, one duty has remained consistent: to ensure law and order for the citizens of Elgin.
It's time now for Fridays with the Finest, featuring Elgin's current police chief, Anna Lally, on Elgin's hometown radio station since 1949, WRMN AM 1410 and 96.7 FM.
And welcome in, folks, to Fridays with the Finest here on WRMN. This is your host on the board hot seat here, Matt McNeil, taking you into this hour. We've got Chief Anna Lally with us today, joining us on this overcast, rainy after Christmas after day, or as people in Britain celebrate Boxing Day as well.
Oh yeah, yes.
As my family comes from Bermuda, my mom's side,
Okay.
and that's part of Britain. So we used to always celebrate Boxing Day when I was a kid.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So-
So they do afternoon tea too. It's very
well, not afternoon tea. We
More like-
have what is it? It's it's like the crackers you open. It's like tight in paper and you crack it open.
Yeah, I know
and
what you're
then
talking about.
There's
Yeah,
little
yeah.
prizes and stuff.
Yeah,
in there,
that's
so
cool. Yeah,
little stuff
no.
like that.
Yeah, no. I hope everyone had a great Christmas. You say you're in the hot seat. I like that, sitting in the hot seat, right? So, yeah, I mean it is kind of the hot seat.
Yeah.
But no, I hope everyone had a great Christmas. It is a little gloomy outside, right? I think people are waking up, making breakfast, maybe enjoying the holiday buzz still. I think a lot of people take this week off and next week. I was driving into work today and there's barely any traffic. So, I think that people are just hopefully spending time with their family and everyone, taking a nice time to just really appreciate each other and take a collective break in a lot of the things that are happening in the world today. And, so yeah, just how was your Christmas? Did you have a good Christmas?
It was very
Great.
good. Yes, very good. It was just the family night. So it was my parents, my aunt, and my brother and our dog Duncan.
Okay.
We had prime rib. We played bingo and some other games, and it was relaxing. It was nice.
Good.
So
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah. I wanted to, just talk a little bit today. We did have two arrests, significant arrests. I want to talk about that, and then really kind of like, talk a little bit about, what like being a police officer during Christmas and the holidays, right? I think it's really interesting. We were just having a conversation before the show, just about how it is different in our profession, because if you think about professions that are 24/7, right? So, and just look at on Christmas, right? When you're driving to your family's house and places, what's actually open, now. But you police officers, firefighters, the hospitals, doctors, right? Think about what profession is it like 24/7. You can't not have a police station. You can't have just everyone be off and no officers. So it really is a very different career. So I want to talk a little bit about that and get just have the community get a little insight into what that's like. But first, let me talk a little bit about two significant arrests that we made. We posted this on our social media. We had a shots fired call that happened last Sunday on the 21st. And it was in the 1100 block of Fairwood Drive. We showed up, we responded there for a report of shots fired. When we got there, so this is the interesting thing, and this is some really good information for the public. So when we receive these calls for shots fired, we go out there and the officers will do a preliminary investigation and try to figure out, can you verify that shots have been fired? The way that you verify it, you either have physical evidence, so you'll see a shell casing, a bullet, or you might have a victim who is struck. So with that, if, absent that, so we'll canvass, we'll knock on doors, we'll look at videos, we'll do everything that we can. And that's just a basic preliminary investigation. That's very routine. absent that, if we don't have anything, then, we still write a police report. We still generate a police report if we think there's something that could potentially be followed up on. Um, and then we're done. But what we also have gotten into the practice of doing, because especially if the shots fired incidents, this happened at 3:51 in the morning, which it's dark outside. So what we've gotten in the habit of doing is we go back and recanvass that next day or a couple days later, because sometimes, especially if it happens in the early morning, a lot of people are at work, so they're not witnesses, but they may come home, and if we say, "Hey, do you have a ring doorbell? Do you have a camera? Do you have something that we could take a look at?" So that recanvass is really to, um, kind of get the community back reengaged with what happened, and then make sure that we're seeing if there is anything. So in this instance, we went out there the first time, and there were not any evidence of shots fired. So and no witnesses, nothing. So we go back though, and when we went back, the officers did an excellent job recanvassing, and that's when we did find evidence of shots fired. From there, our special investigations group then conducted an investigation, and this takes time. Sometimes it's quick. This one is very quick. We made an arrest within, a few days here. But they were able to arrest someone, charge him with some weapons offenses, based on some really good work that they do as investigators, and sometimes very quick turnaround. Um, but I think the community, so that they know when these incidents happen. First of all, we respond to every 911 call. So I know, that information, regardless of what it is, we respond. When we go out there, then we have to figure out what's our preliminary investigation.
Mhm.
Sometimes the call that comes in is not what it ends up being. Sometimes the call that comes in is more than what they're reporting. So that investigative piece is very important, which is why you have to have really good officers who are very thorough and very tenacious. Because if you think about our cold case unit, you don't want to put detectives in that unit who, on face value, they read something, they're like, yeah, nothing to see here, nothing here. We're looking for that deeper analysis. We're looking for somebody to really take the time to look and say, wait a minute, this one piece of information or this one thing that someone said in that moment really didn't mean anything. But when you have all these pieces of the puzzle put together, then it means something,
Mhm.
right? And so I think that it's really important that, we do that. We've done that in all our shots fired cases, to go back out there, to re-engage with the community, to figure out if there's something. In this case, would end up making a great arrest. So we also had another incident that happened on December 23rd at 12:18 in the morning. This was a report of a disturbance in the 600 block of State Street. Long and short of it, through our investigation, someone discharged a firearm during a domestic disturbance. No one was injured, but we did make an arrest, and that person was subsequently charged with some weapons violation offenses as well. So really good work the past couple days, and quick arrests, and I
Mhm.
think that's what the community likes to see. And when it happens like that, it's a great thing, because you don't have to, um, you know, prolong it, because the more time that goes on, the community says, what's going on, or sometimes people assume that we're not working the case when
Mhm.
we really are. We actually are working very hard. That the officers and detectives are very diligent. But sometimes with things like this, when it's quick, it's easy. So
Right.
but with those 2 incidents I wanna mention, so our shots fired, for as of today, we're at 24. Shots fired, remember, includes everything from whether we show up and we just find a shell casing, we find maybe a window struck, or if a person was struck. Last year at this time, we were at 65. So it is
Wow.
a huge yes. I think, I sat down with Ryan last week, my crime analyst, Ryan Drake. We started doing our, the annual report. So,
Mhm.
it takes a lot to put that report together. He does his part, I do my part. We get all the information from the lieutenants and the sergeants. And when we were looking at the graph I think we went back to like maybe 2016 or 14 or something like that. This was the lowest year. So it is, you know, I will say, I wish I knew the why. I wish I knew the why
Mhm.
that I could say for certainty, like, this is it. But there's a lot of reasons why I think, one, I think we have not changed our strategy, right? So we continue to do really great investigations. We continue to arrest people. Sometimes people are involved in multiple crimes. Sometimes one arrest of one person dismantles their criminal activity or their behavior. It's also, I think, our technology, our techniques, right? Really good detectives. So, you have that technique part, you have the investigative side, you have the community portion. The community calls and reports crime.
Hmm.
So, a lot of times when you look at crime stats, if you have a community that does not call when things happen, then you don't know that that crime is happening.
Hmm.
Now, what will happen is, so if I'm, and a lot of times the calling the community, that's based, again, that they feel comfortable reporting it, that they know that the department's going to do something. Um, I mean, I know sometimes that what we can do is not good enough sometimes for people,
Hmm.
right? And we do have limitations and parameters. I think, we can kind of, relate that to what's going on with immigration and, our city council meeting a week or two ago and some of that stuff that's gone on, and talking about here's the Trust Act, here are our limitations, here's what we do. Sometimes I think that that's, and I fully recognize sometimes that's not enough, right? People want more, but what the facts are and what we are doing is important to me that that gets out. And so, 4 shots fired. I was here last year at this time talking about 65 shots fired, right? And
Hmm.
one year was the highest year that we had. And, it was a lot of conversation about, what's going on, what's going on. And so our strategy really hasn't changed. You pivot every now and then to say, okay, what can we be doing better? And that's a constant at the department.
Hmm.
But I think a big part of it too is also some of the programs that we have put in place about 5 years ago. And I think when you put these programs into place initially, and you start to build them and you start to grow them and really kind of you put your energy into something that you think will be something that will be a really good thing. And I'll give you an example, which is our youth empowerment program. So before our youth empowerment program, which started in about 2021, really 22, kind of around that time, um, we did have something called Operation Homefront, and it was part of our gang unit at the time. And basically, the premise was the same. If there were um, people, yes, eventually young kids that were involved in criminal activity or potentially involved in gang activity, we would go out and have a conversation with do some prevention, right, and talk to the family, try to intervene sooner than later. So that had gone on for quite some time now. That kind of the way that we addressed it through police reform, there were some issues about how we were handling and working with juveniles, handling
Hmm.
cases where juveniles. And so we sat down and we worked with Councilman Corey Dixon at the time and 2 community liaisons who are now running our program and, my deputy chief at the time and one of my commanders, and really sat down and thought about, like, what can we do differently here? And we revamped the way that we engage with juveniles who are involved or potentially going to be involved in some type of criminal activity, gang activity. And that was our youth empowerment program. And here we are, 3 years later, 4 years later, and we've had to pivot, we've had to adjust.
Hmm.
We have, some really good people right now who are in charge of it and working with it. And I think that's a big part of where you'll start to see some of these programs have a long-term impact. But when you start a program, the first thing is you'll get criticized, right?
Yes.
It's what everyone likes to do.
Hmm.
I will tell you that, um, the criticism of why are you guys doing this? Why are you spending money on this? This doesn't make sense, and I think that you have to endure a little bit of the criticism to create something that you hope is setting a foundation or a better foundation for the future. So I think some of the programs, whether it's our collaborative crisis services unit, having our youth empowerment program, all these different things that we do and different strategies that we do, I think we're seeing some of the benefits,
Hmm.
and again, that's just anecdotally what I think based upon, being in this profession and being and seeing a lot of things and how our mission has always been the same at the department. You want a safe community, you want engaged in community, and you want professional police officers. It's just how you deliver that, right? It's
Hmm.
how you
Yep.
deliver it that sometimes the how is a different program, a different thought, a different perspective, and not being afraid to be criticized. I think a lot of times it's not an easy thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not fun. If I tell you you're going to go sit in a room with people and they're going to criticize everything that you think and you believe in, and you have to endure that, but you just know that this is going to be something that's going to set the better foundation for the community. And I think
Yes.
that that's where I truly appreciate the people that were involved in that program and working with it because, you know, we believed in something different,
Hmm.
and you do something different and then you see the results. And
Right.
so, I think it's that type of creativity, initiative, and really, I don't. I tell people a lot of times about there. To me, it's not thinking outside of the box. It's a very easy way to capture it. I don't even think like that. I think that there is no box. Like we are not restrained by the only thing that's restraining us are the limitations that we put on ourselves, right?
Hmm.
And what we think. I don't think this is going to be good enough. I think that I'm going to get criticized. And I think when you remove that and you just say, my purpose here is to make the community better and to make, the department better, and you remove those limitations that are more than likely self-imposed,
Hmm.
and then you push and you get the right people along and you get the community who believes in us, right? Sometimes they're not happy with us, and I do understand that, but I think you have to still continue to stay the course.
Right.
And
That's
sometimes,
important.
and
Hmm.
it's not easy
Hmm.
sometimes, right? Like, and I fully recognize that, but the men and women of the Elgin Police Department, they knock it out of the park every day. Just professionals, creative thinkers. Some of these programs don't even, they don't even, some of the programs start with officers who are just, they've been here a few years, and because their perspective is different. And then, we, the command staff, we're willing to listen to something different. And I say, oh, we've been doing this for 30 years, so we know better. It's like, I don't believe in that. It's like, okay, this person has a very unique perspective because they've just come into our profession,
Hmm.
and we've been in our profession for a very long time, which there's stability in that, right? That's where you gain the experience and the knowledge, but you don't discard what people are saying who've just entered into a profession, right? You got to listen to it, hear it, and then from that, embrace that different perspective, which I think has absolutely made us, people who are willing to try something,
Hmm.
so yeah, I want to, obviously just a lot of good things happening. It happens because the men and women in that department who every single day, including Christmas, right? So we were
Hmm.
talking a little bit about that. You know, I remember as a young officer, working on Christmas, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, working whether I was a young officer on a patrol shift or eventually when I became a sergeant and lieutenant, working a patrol shift. You still need bosses to work the shift,
Hmm.
right? So, um, even last night, we have sergeants, we have supervisors, we have officers. They're away from their family. Most people think of Christmas and the holidays, right? Whatever it is, you're with your family, right? You get to enjoy that downtime. You get to decompress. But the thing is if we had something major happen in the city, and even though they're off that day, we may still call them in and say, look, this is happening. We need you here. So you're never really off, right? And some of our
Hmm.
detectives, they're on call,
Yeah.
so they're getting called in the middle of the night. They're coming in. If anyone has been woken up in the middle of the night, right? It's one thing
Hmm.
to be woken up in the middle of the night and you're like, I'm hungry, or, okay, I'm going to fall back asleep. But it's another thing that you have to wake up and now you have to go handle a very serious matter.
Yeah.
So you have to pull yourself together, right? Which
Hmm.
means you have to drink tons of coffee. You have to get up. You have to get in that mode of like, it doesn't matter that it's 2 o'clock in the morning. The people that I'm going to go, this victim deserves the same service as it was 9 in the morning.
Right.
So it's a very unique and different career and perspective. So all the first responders, firefighters, EMT, police officers. I really appreciate obviously what they do.
Hmm.
Having done it and been in the profession for a while, it's very different, very very different.
Yeah.
So
And sometimes people forget about that too. Is that
Mhm.
it's really kind of a 24/7 thing
It
that you have
is.
to do
Yep.
to keep the community safe and to make sure that anyone who's in trouble gets the help that they need.
Yeah.
So and
It is, and I think it's also, so a lot of times officers, so our department is very young when I say young, right? So time on. And a lot of the officers, even though they may have a little bit more time on, you used to not be able to get Christmas off or New Year's or something like that. And so you had like when I got hired, it was like 10, 15 years on before you even got that. Unless there were some officers that were the senior officers that they chose to take they wanted to work it for whatever reason. So now, you do have some younger officers are getting some time off, which is good. It's very good, because they get to enjoy time with their family. But the profession still requires you, to be available. Even
Mhm.
as, especially obviously as the police chief, um, you know, when something happens, it does not matter where I'm at, right? It doesn't matter if I'm, at a family's house, a friend's house, if I'm in my own house. It doesn't matter. I still have to be available and be able to respond. And that's, something that when people come into this profession, that you choose that responsibility, right?
Right.
Like it's never bothered me. This is what I mean. I fully was aware of what was I was getting into, right? So I choose
Mhm.
the responsibility, and I think it. And it's also important to me that that you do show up, right? And then
Yeah.
absent, again, like the radio show today, regardless, every Friday, good, bad, or otherwise, right? Sometimes I'm here and I have to talk about some bad things, good, bad, or otherwise, I'm here, right?
Mhm.
Very, very rarely am I not here unless I'm sick or if I am out of the country or, I do take a vacation every now and then. But, it's a responsibility that you have to the community. It's a responsibility you have to the department. And it's something that as people, rise up in the ranks, I tell people a lot of times if this is the thing that you want to do, you want to become, especially in a command staff, this is what's required of you, right?
Mhm.
This is the required. No one forces you to do it. No one's threatening you. And when you take this, your position and you understand the weight of your position and the magnitude of your position, it doesn't become it's not a burden. It's a privilege to be able to, give to the community and, be able to be responsive and be able to help people.
Mhm.
Right. Like that's something that most people don't really get to do in their lives.
Right.
And especially with the young officers, I tell them every single day you're going to have an ability to do something for someone quietly behind the scenes that will forever change their lives. And
Mhm.
very few people get that opportunity in their life. So every single day, now it's what you make of it, right?
Mhm.
Now, the first time somebody is upset with you and starts yelling at you, what are you going to do, right? Are you going to choose to be gracious and remember why you're here, right? Or are you going to go off the rails, which does nothing for anyone, right? So
Mhm.
I think it's that, if you really get into public service, I think most people who just say, I'm not going to be with my family on Christmas Eve. I'm not going to be with my family on Christmas Day. And you know that, right? And you get
Mhm.
into that profession, you still choose to do that. To me, that's a very admirable quality. And so I really appreciate everyone, the men and women, the police department, all law enforcement, people, doctors, ER staff, right,
Mhm.
firefighters. It's a very different profession, very
It
different.
definitely is. But I know that they do it because they want to do it, right?
Yes,
You want to do it, right?
yes,
So being a part of being a part of that, and it's something that I think is needed, and we're very fortunate here in America to have that too.
yeah.
So.
It's a difference, I guess also like you said, you're choosing to do that and you're
Mhm.
choosing to do it for like what is the purpose, and I think really you talking about, some of the stuff that's been going on with immigration and the city council meeting and the department is working on updating our transparency site with some information immigration related whether it's education information. So we're in the process of working on that. We started working on that last week, so I think this is also where you know, what is the community asking for and how can we deliver it, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes not everything is a good plan, right? Not everything that's suggested is appropriate or is good, but there are some things where, yeah, we can pivot a little bit. So there are some upcoming things working on that. That conversation is going to keep going. I know that, as we move through there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty.
Mhm.
It's important to me that the community understands, the parameters of which we're working in, which is the Trust Act. It's important to me that the community knows we absolutely respond to every 911 call. It's important to me that any person that is as police officers, we're not and we used to have I used to have to explain some of this and talk about this when we were talking about people who are unhoused. So in 2020, during COVID and the park down here, very close to the radio station, there were a lot of people who were unhoused,
Mhm.
and there were a lot of activity going on, and I had to stress to the point that the police officers we deal with behaviors, right? We are not concerned with, if you're unhoused. We're not concerned with, in terms of we're not concerned in that moment of what your action is, right? So we are concerned, which is why we create CCSU and work with our social service providers and try to help people. But when you're committing certain actions, crimes, it's our duty and responsibility to investigate those crimes, regardless of what category you're fitting in, right? We are addressing behaviors. And I think that's important that, you know, and on top of that, we have to work within the parameters of, you know, the framework and the laws that are given to us, whether those are city ordinances, state laws, local laws, federal laws, constitutional law, all this stuff, right? It's not being a police officer is it's not as easy as sometimes people think, and sometimes
Yeah.
you can't just. It's not as easy as just okay, do this, and it's like a temporary fix, right? It's a temporary. You relieve your pain for the moment because people won't be upset with you. You won't listen to it, but then the unintended consequence of doing that is you cause bigger problems, right? So that's where just it's very important to me that, you know, being and listening and hearing, adjusting when we can, continuing to put the right information out there, the you know, and having that accurate information. And I also, you know, not everything is as simple. It's very common, and I know people do this. You know, you hear this snippet of something. It doesn't matter what it is. You hear something. Not everything is actually what someone's saying. There's
Yeah.
more to it. There's more layers. There's more depth. There's more information. You know, and I think it's important that you know we take the time to listen to the whole story, not just the snippet or the news media bite or the you know what is what here's this issue, what is going on, here's this issue, what was actually said, here's this issue, what's actually being done. So I will continue to say that, continue to you know make sure that people have the right information, and you know hopefully as this time in the holidays and people just kind of take a little bit of a pause, you know, just to kind of appreciate what they do have in their life, appreciate each other. You know, doesn't matter if they disagree with you or you know don't like you or anything like that. That to me, it's like you know, as humans, I think we owe it to each other to be. We can have conflict. You know, conflict is sometimes good, right? It depends if the outcome is good, but I think you still have to maintain your graciousness and your understanding and your kindness as humans. I think
Exactly.
that to me is very important, and that's not because I'm the police chief, right? That's because me as a person. So I think, you know, with that, you know, the police officers and you know, it's a very precarious situation. It's not as simple as everyone you know thinks, but we are working, we are listening, we are trying. And again, I'm fully well aware of that. Nothing, sometimes, no matter what I say, people are not going to be happy. I fully understand that. And I get that. I do. And I still appreciate and value everyone's opinions.
Absolutely. And you know, too, like you were saying, also with situations and the stories, a lot of people, it can be very easy for us to come to conclusions right
Yes.
away.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So it's good to sometimes you know sit and listen, and sometimes these things might take time to understand and to recognize.
I mean,
So,
and also it's, you know, the what you said, just, you know, making conclusions and also just thinking about like, you know, the point of taking the time to understand and listen because and gather information because think about the speed of which people's news comes to them, right?
instant. Yeah.
And I mean, you know, 20 years ago, you're not having people Facebook live things, right? You're not having Facebook, social, Instagram, this. So the speed at which information comes to people, and then there's not an ability to, you know, think about what exactly is going on. Like, let me go do my own independent, you know, let me make that conclusion. I think sometimes that gets, I mean, you know, speed is good, right? It streamlines things, but sometimes slowing it down and understanding the context, the nuances, I think that allows a better conversation, right? That allows when we were talking, especially about police reform and the Safety Act, there were so many nuances with it that the snippets of things that people were hearing were not exactly what was going on. So, you know, a speed of information is, you know, obviously helps, but sometimes it's a great thing to slow it down. So, but with that, I'll be back next week. I want to wish everyone a happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I hope everyone's having, you know, I know these next few days people are celebrating. So if you are celebrating, celebrate responsibly. And I hope everyone has a great weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chief, for all
Thank
you do.
you.
Of
Thank
course.
you.